This is Laserlight Presents All About the Gig. And we're back. Laserlight Recording Studio presents All About the Gig. Tonight, we have Jeremy, Ben, Devin, and Dave in the house. What's up, guys?
How's it going, man?
Going well, man.
Hey.
I think we have some good topics to cover tonight, and we have a great room for them. Tonight, we are going to talk about gigging with originals versus covers and the blends. We were going to start off with venues and in everyone's experiences, you know, where they've been, where they're going, you know, where they're headed. What have you learned about, at least in this area or in general, if you can, you know, put that kind of a box to it? What do you do when you're an original band and you are seeking out the right platform to bring your works to the world, right? I think I'd like to start there and talk about venues. And we can make them relevant to where we are here. You know, Waterville is a suburb of Toledo. We can make, you know, bring some relevance to, you know, where we've been and where we're gone, you know, where we've gone. So let's talk about your experiences. You know, we can start with Dave and Devin. Since you've been through both, probably still blend both, right? In some cases, whatever, you know.
Very much so.
But you're an original band, and you're practiced, and you're ready to go. You're ready to bring it and showcase it. What are your thoughts? You know, let's start with Dave. What are your thoughts, Dave? Like, where would you go from here?
So we got to find a place that can house original music. The paradigm is much different in the original scene versus the cover scene, mostly in the clientele and how they structure their live music. So with a cover band, you know, you're being hired to go play at an established bar where patrons frequent as not necessarily music goers, but more as bar goers. Whereas it flip-flops with the original music scene. With the original music scene, a lot of people don't necessarily just go to that venue apropos of nothing. They go there specifically to see a band that they want to listen to. So if I have a purely original set, what I need to do is I need to seek out one of these venues, and a lot of the times they're going to either build a show around the genre of music that they're trying to put on for that night, or they will have you build the show. That is not uncommon for, you know, somebody to seek out a venue, and they're like, "Sweet, can you get maybe 2 other bands to make a night out of it?" And you know, make it happen. So in this particular area, there's a few different sound companies and a few different kind of concert companies that would put on a lot of original bands over on the east side, and a few of them are defunct at this point. But what they would do is exactly that model where they would have, you know, okay, we're going for a hard rock night. I know this band, this band, this band, because they all reached out to me. Let's put them on the same bill together. You each get 30 to 45 minutes, and you know, you'll have your crowd there and the other band's crowd, and hopefully you gain some fans and some traction doing it that way. Whereas with the cover music scene, it's like you're going to play for 3 to 4 hour sets, and you will have more or less a built-in audience.
Sure, they're there. They're there for the, you know, they want that ambient sound. They want to socialize. They want to focus on their friends, focus on you, focus on the moment, focus on, you know, the overall experience. And they want a blend of things, right? Yeah, to your point, great point, where, you know, if we're all heading out, we're like, you know what, I want to go see some original work. You know, we're definitely going to seek out a certain venue that caters to that. Yeah.
Whereas if you're like, hey, I want to go bar hopping, let's go downtown. Just about every bar downtown has a band, and they're going to be playing your favorite hits. You know, it's going to be like, I want to have a few beers, not really have to, you know, be challenged by the music. I just want to sing the songs that I grew up with, or sing the songs that are popular right now, and just, you know, have some fun.
So Devin, you're the original band, and you've just finished, you know, let's call it 24, 32 songs, right? You're ready to go out, if at all possible, and do 2 nice sets, you know, time-wise. Maybe 3 sets broken up.
Of all original music?
Yeah, of all original music.
That's rare around
what
here.
Kind of?
I know.
Well, that's what we want to dive into, because we really want to, explore, for the listeners who are in that scenario, what am I really seeking out? Because I want, who doesn't want to go out and get that fulfillment? Who doesn't want to go out and get that return, right? Most importantly, who doesn't want to do that with attentiveness? It is one thing to do it, and with the understanding that we're probably going to be looking at the sides or backs of a lot of people's heads, for the duration of the night. Or is it all eyes on us?
I mean, I'd be very surprised if it was all eyes on us, because I think if you're going to make something like that happen, you have to be willing to be part of some kind of movement that's really pushing that. Because, even when I've paid good money, for concerts, if they're getting even close to 2 hours, and I've paid a lot to be in those seats, I'm already kind of like starting to look at my watch like, oh man, this is kind of a longer show than I thought it was. And
jam band territory.
This is an artist that I already cared a lot about and I was invested heavily in, but that's a long show for one genre often. So unless there's someone who has many waves of like, in one decade they were this, and the next decade they were this, or album to album release, they really changed. So they're kind of putting on mini shows of each idea. And it kind of becomes a variety show of their own instead of a variety show of multiple bands. I can see how that opportunity might work. But most of the time when you're doing original music, it's really about having a showcase. And it's about putting together that like tight 1 hour show. And, we'll come on to this more. I'm sure I'll talk about it and we can get into like philosophies of that. But I've never done original projects for money. Yeah. Every time I've done original projects that I was part of instrumenting it, that's a great word there. Yeah. Well, instrumental in forming the project, though. Sure. Those were always projects that I knew were for fun. And in the background of my mind, knowing that I want to be a gigging, playing, lifelong musician who makes their living off of it, I knew in the back of my head that unless I devote my life to this project and the other guys around me are willing to devote our lives to this project, this will never be financially feasible. So you have to go into it with kind of a no plan B mentality. And because we weren't doing that, we knew that we would throw on a show or two here or there. And it was fun because a friend of ours was writing an album. We helped write it with them. And he said, I just got 2 shows. Are you guys willing to come out and do those dates? There's not really any pay, or there's just enough like scratch to pay for gas. And we'd be willing to do it because we're friends and it was a good time. We liked the music. We had the dates free. But when it really came down to it, the only times I made money on original projects weren't those. They were when I was a hired gun. So it kind of came back to that whole sideman thing again, where, the artist is maybe not making a dime on these shows, but he's paid for all of his sidemen to come in, learn his material in a rehearsal or two, and then go perform his music. And we all as players were getting paid and did our paycheck. And then we went off to do the next gig, where, they were just happy to get their music out there. Yeah. And, maybe they're hoping that gets them to a festival gig in the future, or maybe they're just doing it for the love. A lot of reasons why they might do that.
Yeah, that's some strong insight.
There's a lot of different gradations with that, too. It's I was fortunate enough to be hired on to 2 separate tours in 2019 with an original band. And, he bankrolled the entire tour himself. I don't fully know the financial regards of it, but I would assume that it was probably a bit of a loss. But I was hired sideman on that particular tour, so I was out for
win-win.
Yeah, I was out for 15 days. I got to see the entire East Coast and play in cities I've never played in before and do some cool stuff. And I made some money on the way back, so it was really cool, and I really dug the music, and it was a lot of fun.
If I can interject right there, that can be a double-edged sword too, because you can be with an artist who hasn't quite made it, and maybe they're getting a good tour together and they're barely breaking even or even going lost on the project, and all their sidemen are getting a good paycheck. But then if the tide starts to turn where they actually get the popularity, they can become the guy who's making $5-6 grand a night, and they're still only paying the band $200 a day. So it can flip, if you catch it at the right time, you could go from the guy making all the money and he's starving himself to all of a sudden he's pulling in the paychecks. Yeah. So that can happen.
But you know what you're signing on to.
Yeah, of course.
There's a pre-negotiated rate.
Now, let's say that page turns in that manner, right? Well, now you're actually getting even more attention, though. So you're gaining some artist leverage as you're capped monetarily, but you're uncapped with your exposure.
Yeah. You can say,
right?
I toured with so-and-so, and I've recorded with this.
Yeah.
And,
And you can also take the seat of, like, instead of getting a chip on your shoulder, like, look at, they're the one who took the biggest risk out of all of us. I was always going to get a paycheck, and they are the ones who put themselves out there and maybe finance it themselves, and now it's paying off for them. This is their project. This is their baby. And, like, I'm glad it's paying off for you. Keep me on the books.
Yeah.
And, hey, if you're a cool enough guy or gal, raise the rate when you can afford it. I'd love to come back if you can.
Sure.
You can try and negotiate that.
I'm working hard over here.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you're on the road doing it with them.
Right. So, Jeremy, Ben, I want to let's talk about your experiences thus far, right? So, Jeremy, Cerebral Cortex.
Right? Yeah.
That's one of Jeremy's most recent bands. And what were some of the steps that you and your band took? You obviously generated a song list, a set list, right? You honed in your skills, you honed in what you wanted to bring out and present to the world. What did you guys do? Did you look for opportunities for like contests? Did you look for opportunities for original band night, venue themed, right? Locations? What was your approach to getting it out there? Or did you even get it out there yet?
As a band, we are pretty new, pretty fresh.
Yeah.
And I got introduced to the Toledo scene, like going to a bunch of shows there.
Well, you also work for a sound production company too, right? So you had a lot of you had those feelers out there. You kind of knew you weren't just in the dark, too, right?
Right. Yeah. Like Frankie's, Ottawa Tavern, Civic Music Hall, those venues, and we kind of started off there to start playing shows, which we were able to play 2 shows before the COVID pandemic.
Yeah. Let me ask you about that. So how did that go down? So you mentioned the Ottawa Tavern, right?
Yeah.
And Frankie. So who did what? So obviously someone in the band reached out, sought out a time or a themed night, or how or what is the Ottawa Tavern about? Are they welcoming? Did you have to sell tickets? Did you go through a promotion company, or you did it all on your own?
Well, at the time, Ottawa Tavern was run by Innovation Concerts, and
right.
I had gotten connections from them beforehand, so Cody actually reached out to us to play that show.
Yeah. I know. Well, I don't know him. I haven't met Cody, but I've had an awful lot of emails and text chains with Cody. So that's pretty cool. That's interesting. So did you have to do that usual model where you promote your show, try to sell tickets to it? Did you get that kind of a thing going on?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So tell me about the Ottawa Tavern. Did you guys like the space?
Yeah, I'd say so. It was a great experience. I mean, I myself don't have much experience playing live concerts.
Yeah.
So from my understanding, I think it went well, and having those acts that played after us, they were able to draw in a lot of people.
Oh, cool. How did it go down with sound there? Was there someone that worked sound, or was it up to you guys? Oh, really? Oh, cool. Someone that's affiliated with them, or was it like an independent service that they brought in?
Yeah, Innovation Concerts, they bring in their own sound guys and pay them.
That must be cool to get on stage and get sound checked, and it's one less freaking thing to worry about.
Right.
Right. When you got everything adrenaline pumping, and it's like, oh, cool.
I mean,
at least this is covered.
A lot of touring acts, they'll get their own sound guy that they basically hire on, but usually venues themselves have a sound guy.
That's pretty choice when that is the model.
Yeah,
definitely. So Ben, in your case, with your band Another Life, you've had some different sites, some different venues. You've played on the lake. You've played in Sylvania. You've had a little bit of a circuit run. And you guys were self booking. And what was sort of your preparation? As a group, did you guys you must have, well, not must have, but did you consider implementing covers into your set list? You know, to reel in, like we were talking about earlier, you know, are we looking at, you know, Backs of Heads, Sides of Faces, All Eyes on Us? You know, you probably worked that out, right?
Right. We've always been fond of covers. There's a bunch of songs that we all like, and some like, and some other don't like, and you know, whatever. Yeah. We all agree on a few.
Yeah.
And we like those. And that's just only because some of us are in a I guess you would call writer's block, right?
Okay.
So that's what you would say.
Yeah.
And so we maybe play a few cover tunes, but
and you want to fill that space.
Yeah, you want to fill it.
You know, you're looking at the board and you're going, oh
and
my
you
God,
want to add
we've
to
got
the repertoire.
2.5 hours.
Correct. Yeah. Well, you want to add to the repertoire, right? So you want to, you know, put as much covers on as you can, but we want to write as much music as we can. So when we're not writing music, which I guess we're always writing music, but you know, in that small space that maybe we're all out of wits.
Yeah.
You throw in a few covers.
Well, you just need that little cush. And, you know, I happen to know that you guys, you know, your original works will leave the average listener questioning, who was that? Or, you know, what band sings that? You know, or, you know, and you're like, that's us.
Not to mention,
that's always killer.
Our sound guy is sitting right next to me.
Yeah.
That's Jeremy. That's our sound guy.
That's outstanding.
Which is pretty cool.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Dave and Devin, let's consider in your experience, and this is an interesting question. You know, let's get to a granular level. Set 1, set 2. Let's call it 2 sets.
Okay.
Let's call it an 8 to 9 song set list each.
Sure.
Where do you think covers belong? You're an original band, but you do want to plug in some covers. You know, I've always thought about this when I was making set lists in previous projects, and I always felt like, you know, based on the originals and their tempos and their genres, it came quite easy to me to dial in those little, we'll throw this here, you know, and if anybody's even half listening, it'll just, like you've said before, you know, no reaction is still a good reaction, you know, because you're not putting off people. You know?
Yeah.
You know, they're actually enjoying it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What do you think? 8 to 9 song set list, 2 of them. Do you start with a cover?
Absolutely.
Do you really? Ben, that's good input. Really? Yeah.
I was actually specifically told by a production manager in Cleveland to never start with the cover.
Really? Well, when you're trying to bring out your stuff.
It depends. You know, if you're a cover band, or are you an original band?
Well, you're an original band, and you're filling 2 strong spots, 2 strong set, you know, signatures,
Always lead with a cover.
Yeah.
Want your best, or I'm sorry. Don't lead with a cover.
With your best original or something. Maybe not your best, but... Well, what do you guys think?
But that's just us.
I thought you said a cover at the
beginning.
I
did.
screwed up. I think if you're an original band and you want to promote your own music, in my opinion, I'd say lead with the original song. But if you're majorly a cover band and you have some originals here and there, I'd say lead with the cover song.
Well, sure.
Give
the people what they want, but what they're there for. But my interest lie, and I think you're probably about to speak to it, is what's the logic, or you know, how many originals do you put out and then rope somebody back in?
In that kind of a set, where you're giving me 9 songs per set,
yeah.
What I would say is at most 3. And what I'll say is, if I can only have 1, this is my first spot, which is quote unquote encore song, which is the second set is actually 8 songs. We leave stage and we assume if we're good enough, they ask us back on. We come back on, do a cover.
Ooh.
And we do an arrangement. We don't do a straight cover. We do an arrangement of the band that showcases whatever our genre is. We twist that song into fitting into our vibe.
Yes.
So that would be spot 1. And because it's great, because if they encore you, you come back on and then you play a crowd pleaser and you do it to your genre.
Yeah.
And it just kind of piques everyone's attention again. Yeah. And also you get them singing and they're happy you came back on stage and like everyone knows the words.
Interesting.
So even if they don't know your band well, they probably know that song. So it's like, that's a nice little contender just to be like, bam.
I'm feeling that. I'm seeing it. I think I've actually experienced that. You know what I mean? I'm sure you have. Yeah, that was some sound advice. I like that.
And then if I had the other two, I'd probably stick them as close to the middle of the sets as I can. Somewhere where I've ridden. I always think of shows as, and you have to have your ebbs and flow of energy. So if I kick really hard at the beginning, I only do that for 2 or 3 songs, and then I got to find a way to bring it down.
Yeah.
And if we're the kind of band where we don't have low energy, maybe I bring it down sonically by saying, okay, we did 3 or 4 bangers. Now we're going to do a cover and kind of throw everyone off for just a second in the middle of the set. And then we're going to take that and ride it into our songs again and build back up till the end of the set.
Yes.
And like kind of ride that roller coaster.
Yes.
And I would imagine doing it something like that.
Interesting. That's awesome. I can see it. Question.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect segue. Original band, 2 sets, 8 to 9 songs. Do we come out hopping and popping? Do we come out? What do we do? We've got songs of all types of genre and all types of tempo. We're just that, our color wheel's huge, right?
I'd say so. I mean, if you're original band, people are specifically going there.
You want to just, get everybody in type thing?
Yeah, they're specifically coming there to see you. I mean, they're not just stumbling across a concert venue. They're coming there to see you. Yeah, why not?
As fast as possible.
Yeah, I like that. There's merit in not doing that, but I love it when you go to a concert and they come out ripping. That's fun.
Yeah, I do too.
The only caveat I would give to that is don't go anywhere in the middle. You either need to come out hitting them in the face or you need to come up and just start gently bringing them into something that's going to erupt by the end of the song. So don't go in the middle. No one likes lukewarm coffee.
No.
Hit them with hot coffee or give them an iced coffee.
And those lukewarm ones are always the most troublesome on the board. When you're just like, where is this lukewarm one?
Plus if they're coming to see an original, they're coming to see, like you said, that they know you. They're coming to see an original band. They want to see the original band. Maybe a few covers here and there, but hit them in the face with
Show us what you got.
One of your solid original songs.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. The only other thing I'll say to that is it also depends on the venue. Because if you're at a place...
Well, sure. There's so many determinants.
If you're playing a summer festival where you are not the headliner and you're dealing with who knows the sound guy is, who's going to spend the first 2 songs dialing you in, you might say, let's do the ease in song for the first song. And if we don't feel like it's good yet, we'll do a throwaway song. And as soon as we feel like it's popping upstage, hit everyone with the song that we wanted them to hear. Because the last thing I want to do is give them our big hit of a song.
That sounds like garbage.
And we don't sound good. And like the singer is way under the mix or the guitar is way too loud.
Really good point.
So Jeremy,
I'm easing into it.
Segue for you, man. I mean, that's a great point. And that is sometimes the general practice, How
does that work, Jeremy?
Well, my question to Jeremy is, maybe sometimes you don't have. We've talked about this in other casts.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Do you get that opportunity for a sound check, or do you not? So if you do or don't, that's a huge determinant.
Yeah.
But Jeremy, let's say a band does not get that opportunity for a sound check. Would you recommend that very same thing that Devin talked about, like coming in with something that's a little more, medium sauce, if so that nobody would really notice while you're working it in, and you know what I mean?
Yeah, I'd say if the band doesn't know the sound guy very well, or if it's someone new, then yeah, I'd say I definitely agree with that. But like if you know the sound guy or you've been in that venue a lot and you hear the sound guy work with people a lot, then you really don't have to worry about it. But
because he's probably only 28 seconds to 1 minute away from dialing you in the middle of your smash out song. I see what you're saying.
And I can put this question to Jeremy, and maybe he can tell me whether I'm right or wrong, which is if you're going to be in those situations where you don't get a sound check, you have no idea what's going on, you should come up with a set starter that allows you to do something pretty darn quiet, maybe almost as quiet as you'll ever get, and something almost as loud as you'll ever get, because you're like, I'm giving you a sample of everything that we will be. Because if I hit you with a song that's at 11 and the next song is supposed to be a ballad, all of a sudden the audience can't hear a damn thing that you've done because he turned everyone way down. And then when you come in with the soft ballad, they don't know what to do. And it's opposite. If you come in with a ballad and then they bring you all up and your next song just hits, then you blast everyone's ears out. So it's like, you can use that first song to be like, hey, I'm going to non-verbally show you what our range is.
Yeah.
Like, this is where we are.
Jeremy, to that point, does anyone ever show you or give you ahead of time any kind of file? I mean, would that be like beneficiary? Would that benefit the situation?
A file as in like a backtrack?
Yeah, like, hey man, like to Devin's point, like here's our hots, here's our lows. I don't know. I'm just kind of thinking like, how could everybody cover all the bases, if that's available? I don't know. Or are you confident enough to move on the fly to adjust to those things?
From a sound engineer perspective, if you hit really hard first, then it's blasting. But like if you're worried about the next song being too quiet, like you can always push it up as long as your levels aren't
a good engineer is adapting to that on the fly, right?
Right.
Your program, your process. Yeah. There's just a great divide there. It's like, tonight do we have a good one? Tonight do we not have a good one?
Yeah, and with the hope is like big acts right now, one of the things they do is what they call virtual sound checks, which is basically they can input into their board inputs as if musicians are on stage, but it's actually a recording from another night. Ooh. And it's not just a stereo dual track, it's every single track, and they can mix the room.
That's kind of what I was speaking to, like a heads up ahead of the gig.
Yeah, and for like the last 15 years, that has been a thing on pro level systems. Yeah. So, there's a good chance that, in the next 10, 15 years, it might be normal that before you do a show, you send them a quick file and say, hey, here's a stems file from like one of our gigs last summer. It was a really good show, so use this to do a preliminary mix. And maybe as an engineer, you're expected to sit there and do a mix for all the bands the day before that anyone comes in.
Exactly.
Like, who knows? Maybe things will change in the next decade because
can you do that?
As this stuff is becoming more common and trickling down to rigs that we can afford and smaller sound companies can do, maybe we'll be afforded those kind of luxuries.
What do you think about that, man?
I feel like a lot of main like big group acts definitely do that for sure. Myself personally, I've never received stems to go in a day prior or earlier in the day to do that. But
would you welcome it?
Oh, of course.
Oh, wow. Listen up out there.
It's definitely smart.
That's really killer. I'm glad I asked because to me, that would be huge.
Well, it'd be great because we'd have a good relationship with our engineers then, because there's always this push and pull with like the players and the engineers. And, if we could go into it where not everyone feels like they're blind, I feel like that'd be a good way to start shoring up those connections and make everyone feel a little better about it.
Now let's think about the reality of that.
Yeah.
What does that mean to you with time and monetary gain? I mean, you're going to go to the gig and you're going to be the sound guy and you're getting paid for the gig time. How would that work in real world time? Hey man, Jeremy, tomorrow night, I heard you're going to be our sound engineer. Here's, 8 tracks, 16 tracks. Here's all the stems. That's time, dude. So
right.
Where would that come into play? Would your company have to bill it out? Would you bill it out? Would your company allow you to be independent of it? I mean, you don't have to answer for, but I'm saying, right? Let's think about the reality of it. Unless you're just absolutely in love with what you're doing, that's work, right?
Yeah, no doubt. It's time on the clock for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So
you'd have to come up with some sort of right?
Yeah, I think it would make sense.
Okay.
But at the same time,
it's justified.
They would probably go through the company, right? First, or unless it was like us, then we contacted you personally.
Oh, there's no favors. There's no crying.
Right.
Maybe it's one of those things where it starts off as a premium service long before it becomes common.
Yeah. So that might be something for you to loft out there, and then your company could put it and publicize it, and market it as, hey, by the way, you want to do this ahead time, this is what it costs, but guess what? You're going to be twice as nice when you show up to the gig.
Not to mention, now you don't have to wait for the guitar player to tune his guitar or the drummer to get his heads right or things like that. If you say, mic it the same way you do every time, and we're going to mix based off what you gave us, that means that they can do their job without waiting for any of the musicians to do anything. So it might be one of those things where it saves them time. I mean, we'll see.
Yeah.
Well, also, when you're a sound engineer, you do have to keep in mind of the room sound. And, like, of course, stems can be recorded differently, and you might not have the same equipment. So that can cause a difference in sound, of course. But, sure. Of course, just having those stems to begin working on can... You'll know what you're expecting.
Yeah,
better than nothing.
Yeah. Well, I think what you just did, Jeremy, was create a vetting question. So if this is going to be a pathway that you're offering, there should be some vetting questions. Okay, you're sending me these stems. Are these stems going to be true to your sound? Right?
Yeah. True to the live sound.
That's a great point. And there you go. That's why you're good at what you do, man. Okay. Who here has ever given an autograph? No. No, that's just one of those sidebar questions. Okay, no one. Okay.
Like Battle of the Bands 2010 right, to some 13-year-old.
Right. You never know. That could have been a whole new story. Okay. All right, so I think so far we've hit on some great ideas for new ways to approach gigging ahead of the gig, which I really dig, with the whole sound check thing, because it's always been a preoccupation of mine of, if it's garbage in, it's garbage out. You know what I'm saying? And especially if you're putting it in the hands of someone else. Thus far in my experience, which is very limited, I've always been, Ben can attest to it. I've always been sound engineer, roadie, setup, whatever, and then actually performing as well.
Correct.
And I've always taken comfort in it because I love it. And I also have always assured that it was going to go well. In my mind, like I knew every connection was perfect. I knew every single thing on that board was perfectly balanced.
So with that being said, do you mind if I tell this?
Oh, go for it.
We did, so we, obviously me and him were in a group together, and we always practiced here and screwed around and, had fun. And then we booked our first gig.
At a block party or something, right?
It was a block party, yeah.
Yeah.
And it was like a Saturday or Sunday or one of those days. And we were like, what time do you want us to come over? He's like, well, maybe noon or something. The gig was later in the afternoon. So we all came over and
to help.
Yeah, to help. And everything was already packed. Every single piece of equipment was already packed. And so we were like, what the hell, dude?
Yeah.
And then
it's about the support.
Yeah.
It's camaraderie.
He was like, yeah, it's a thought that counts, So whatever. So we went to the show, and then we got there, and we were like, all right, what do you want us to grab? He goes, you guys just, go over there and get a drink or something. He goes, I got this. And we're like, we're going to help you. And he goes, he's like, actually, no, I don't want any of you
actually touching anything.
Yeah. And he did. He set up the whole thing himself. And then we were like, well, we feel horrible. And
but you know what, dude?
But it worked out great.
I was, and I speak to this all the time, Vibe, Mojo, like I was hyped up on dialing it all in because, this room especially, this is probably the 17th version of this room. So it's like taking all of this and going out and gigging somewhere is just like second nature, But at the same time, I really was always relishing in the fact that I wanted, my group, my crew to be enjoying the experience, I get it. We all should be putting in our equal efforts, but it just wasn't that big of a deal. More so than everybody taking it in and getting the most out of that moment and then coming up.
I think all I had to do was just take my amp and just plug
That's
it
what
in,
I mean.
Right. Plug it in, and then I was good to go.
Yeah, that's the experience I wanted to, the crew to have,
It was the best.
I would have felt
I
felt horrible, though. I felt
horrible.
Like, this dude unloaded everything. He loaded it all, and then he unloaded it all, and he didn't want us to help.
But it was a great show, and you guys had a blast.
Yeah,
and
we
the
all
mojo and the vibe was just all kinds of over the top.
That was fun.
And that's what made it that was my return.
Not to mention, he unloaded it all too. After the show was over, he
packed it up.
Same order.
That was the other thing.
Don't touch anything. I got it all.
Order. There's a science to making the ease of repacking the room.
Yeah.
If you have like a catalog approach.
It was like Tetris. I looked in there and I was like, exactly. Oh, I understand now.
Oh, we know.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
We're no strangers.
Oh, yeah. You guys are,
we know.
All kinds of conditioned on that. All right, Dave.
Yes.
Band, New Audio. Tell me about them. Original artist band, right?
That is, yes.
Yeah.
It is.
Tell us about them, man.
Yes. So that is my good friend Nick Wilson. He is the composer of all the songs, New Audio.
Pretty cool.
And he kind of runs it more Commonwealth than anything, where our opinions are very valued, and there's been times where we've collaborated on stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then my buddy Brad also plays with that group, and
it's a killer group, man.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. It's a lot of fun to play with that. Nick writes some really cool songs. And
doesn't Tim play guitar on that sometimes?
Yeah, he does. Yeah,
I thought so.
Tim Kennedy, nice guy. But yeah, that group's been around for quite a while. It's been through different iterations and lineup changes. More recently than not, one of our session musicians, Brad Billmeyer, has been playing with the group, and that's kind of brought in a new direction.
How so?
Having a drummer that has the sensibilities of a jazz musician and understanding how to communicate in that idiom, along with myself being primarily a jazz musician in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
I know how to communicate with him in that regard, even though what we're playing is more kind of groove oriented.
Yeah, I was going to say, man, because when I listen to it and I watch the streaming, and I that's interesting that you say that.
Mm-hmm.
I get it, the science, the communication, instrumental. And thus alike. Yeah.
Yeah, that's why, every great recording artist is a jazz musician. Just about every pop record that breaks platinum is recorded by jazz musicians, If you can do that, you can do it all, but you can't stagnate. You got to be able to master that craft and then expand out, because I also know on the other side of it, a lot of jazz musicians that only want to play in that idiom. But anyways, getting back to New Audio. It's a lot of fun to play with them. Really cool group of guys, and as far as original projects go, that's a lot of fun. And that group's done a few cover shows as well too. It's something that we have.
Really?
Yeah, we have that under our belt. More recently than not, roughly around the time that we brought Brad into the band, not back into the band. We started doing some cover shows and stuff like that. Because I think it was right around 2018 when I started really picking up as like a sideman around the area.
Yeah.
New Audio wasn't playing quite as much because they were going through some lineup changes, and I was finishing up some school stuff. Nick was finishing up some school stuff, and I started gigging like a ton. So that group kind of slowed down at that point. And, we started playing around town. We played at Patty Jack's we had like a little residency there back when they were doing music.
Nice.
In the, what location?
It's in Sylvania,
Central.
Right? Oh, it's Central.
Yeah, Central and McCord or whatever.
Yeah. And we did a few things like that. And,
let me tell you, man, that your works there's some heavy composition going in there.
Oh, yeah.
Every time,
it's
every song that comes up, I'm just like, wow, there's just a lot that's happening, and it works, and it sounds awesome.
Yeah, Nick
what kind of time went into that?
Nick does it really well, man. He comes to us with this full composition, and he's like, this is what I'm envisioning. Now, the last thing I want you guys to do is, we have now created all of the outline colored in. He's not dictating what the drummer has to do. He's not dictating what I, as the bass player, have to do. It's like, these are the kind of tonescapes we're trying to paint with. Fill it in, and I trust your opinion. And, if he has notes on something, he'll be like, maybe try it like this, or maybe add a little bit more of this, or, he might play a song and be like, oh, I'm thinking of this like Kings of Leon song.
Yeah.
Or I'm thinking of, whatever.
And the guys can just latch on, adapt, and move on.
And that comes back to jazz. That's literally jazz in a nutshell is adapt and overcome.
Yeah.
Is he giving you lead sheets, sort of, or?
No, typically not. He comes with some ideas, and we just,
Okay, so he comes with you ideas, and I'm assuming guitar parts, and then he lets you guys build it in from there?
Yeah, I mean, just open your ears and figure it out. Sorry.
Yeah, I figured he wasn't coming with like a full blown sheet music.
He has come to us with like lead sheets before, and he'll like give us that and be like, "This is the idea I'm going for." And if he has like a specific riff or something like that, he might kind of write it out in shorthand or something. But yeah, typically he'll just come to us with an idea, and then we'll bounce back and forth with it, and kind of create something out of it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Jeremy, tell us a little bit about the latest, greatest band, right? Cerebral Cortex. So how was your experience with that album? And I mean, how many songs did you guys, I noticed you guys are on Spotify, right?
Yeah.
How many tracks do you have up there?
We did a 6-song EP. Nice. And it was a lot of fun recording it. Yeah.
Yeah, I bet.
Back in 2019, recorded with Eric Krolak. Yeah, that's just kind of how we started. Like I actually have Pro Tools at home, so I was able to record the demos of the songs, sent it to him, and then went over there and tracked everything.
So you layered. You guys didn't do it all live together, hot and messy and hard and ready to go. Yeah. That was terrible analogy. Go ahead.
Yeah,
but we're gonna keep it.
I like it.
I think for metal bands, for sure, it's definitely best to record like one at a time. But
but you layered, you stacked, right? Oh, interesting. Elements. You did all the positions. Yeah, interesting. What do you think about live recording?
Don't talk shit. That's what we do here.
Yeah.
It definitely.
So.
It can definitely work.
Definitely, it does work.
What does it take?
Yeah, it does.
What does it take? Because everybody has their own opinion.
Sound.
What does it take? What does it take to do it?
Well, you got to be good at your craft.
You got to be damn good at what you're doing and practice and ready to rock. Oh yeah, that's what we're all about here, man.
And there's no room to polish a turd when you do it live. I mean, you got to bring your A game because
no turds allowed.
What you're polishing is what you got. I mean,
that's right.
Not to say that being able to track one by one, but like that does give you room to fix errors, and it also gives everyone room to do a couple tries. Where the problem with like live is not only do you have to do it all together, but it has to be perfect. And I mean, one thing is, when we're doing mostly like pop and rock stuff, there's this like room for slop in that. It's almost part of the magic.
Yeah.
And, I'm sure you can understand, like metal music, there's not room for slop. It's like that precision is what makes that sound. Like you don't have room for being off by a 16th of a note here. There.
Yeah. It all depends on your style of genre, the sound you're going for, whether like even metal bands, you can do it recording live. I think it brings a different element of sound.
God, it does, dude. It just does.
Doubt.
The energy, the heart, the connect, the synchronicity. I mean, that's what I've always been about. That's what I want to hear. When back in the day when, we bought CDs, I'd be like, ooh, track 8's alive, ooh, go right to the live version and then listen to the rest of the CD. There's just so much going on there, that it's just, I don't know. That's just always been a thing of mine. And, to say that, hey guys, it'd be really cool to hear you guys, do this track live together doesn't mean once. It means, hey guys, how about in 30 minutes, you do this song as many times as you can live together and shock the shit out of yourselves, so.
I have a question for you, Jeremy. So like, I know like, when I listen to like a bluesy rock group or a jazz group, I go out of my way to hear like a live version. But whenever I used to listen to heavier music, I actually preferred the album versions because even if the band had fantastic live personas and performances, it just lost a bit of that sound to me. There's definitely a sound of in the studio, in the booth, that dryness and that bigger than life kind of sound that you can get. I don't know if you felt the same way. I was curious. You're a bit more of a connoisseur of it than I am, so I didn't know if that might be
I definitely
like
a bit of both. Like, of course, it's going to sound different, no doubt.
Yeah.
And a lot of bands will actually, because they'll have so many different layers, especially in metal music, they'll actually backtrack some of the parts so you don't have to have 4 guitarists playing up on stage at the same time.
Yeah.
What I like about live music and seeing metal bands is that it's way louder. You don't have to just blast it on speakers. Yeah. It's a whole different feeling. Like there's a lot of energy, especially if the whole crowd is really into the music. Like me myself, I love the hell out of mosh pits. Like
oh yeah, and I wasn't talking about being there. Being there is a whole different visceral experience. I
but
just
that,
like
but
album
that go-to on the absolute just I get it. You know, that sound, you know, that's
live performances
fully
versus
produced
recordings.
With the same energy, if you will, you know.
That's an interesting point, though. The line does blur at certain points with certain acts about what's live and what's performed versus what's pre-recorded. Because I remember Periphery, right?
Yeah.
Periphery, their bass player quit like mid-tour or something like that. And that's not a gig that you just find a bass player for. Like that's hard music. That's very technically proficient stuff. And all they could do was just put a backing track on of his parts, and they, so they just didn't have a bass player up there.
Yeah. Did they get shunned for that?
Oh, good God.
I don't think they did.
No.
I don't think they did. People understood.
It's actually, it's pretty common in the metal scene to actually backtrack bass players, especially in like really low tuning parts. Like,
it's a different world. It really is. Because like when I first heard about it, I had that same reaction of like, that's not cool. But then like I talked to some people about it. They're like, no, the scene's way different than what you think. That it's not. They don't entirely shift the focus on like just the sheer like what's happening. Can you recreate what you did on your album entirely on stage? It becomes more like, what show are you putting on? Like what's this visceral experience, like you said, that we're all here to experience? Because nobody really gives. They don't care that there's not a bass player up there. There's still like 35 guitarists up there doing a thing.
I don't know. I hear what you're saying.
It's different. It is different. I mean,
well,
like,
to push through, I guess. If you're in the crowd and you're a fan and you understand that, listen, we're pushing through.
You're just so happy they didn't cancel the tour.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's an understood. We're pushing through.
You have to understand that it all
just imagine
works. It works on clockwork.
For Metallica, it was different though. When their bass player went away.
Well,
the new one came on. They were like,
"Yeah,
screw you, man."
Well, good point. I mean, yes, it's complicated. It's heavily composed.
Right.
It's complicated and it's heavily composed, but I'm posing the question with an opinionated answer.
Sure.
You don't think you could find somebody to fill that pocket if you had the right coin to offer?
They would. I mean, they could, and there's definitely people that could definitely do it on the drop of a hat. But like, there's so much more that happens at those shows that I've even more recently than not been informed about. Like, it's not as simple as like this bass player that can play the tune shows up with their gear and ready to go. Yeah. Like, they're all running through like Axe effects and stuff that like it's all switching for them. There's no pedal boards there. It's like in your ears on click number 32 of song 3, everything switches, and if you're not there, you miss it.
Ooh.
And if you get off, you're FUCK. Yeah. Like, you cannot get off, or else
you're
tell
screwed. Me what that is. What's Axe Effect?
Axe Effects. It's a newer digital program that basically it preloads. It can be as simple or as complex as you want it to be. And my limited knowledge with it, it preloads all of your effects, and it preloads. You can tell it exactly
often amp sims and things like that too.
Amp sims effects, like everything. And what it does is everybody runs through this one unit. And, on song number 2 at the 4-minute mark to you or to the audience, which is actually beat number 4,482 or whatever, it knows to switch to overdrive 4 and phaser 1 and this and that, and it switches all of it for you on the fly. Yeah. And, like, if you miss it or if you kind of stumble or anything, because it's all on a click, and it's in your ear.
So it's only click? There's no visual indicators or anything you can adapt?
They probably have some visuals, I'd assume, right? I don't really know.
But
I've never messed with Axe Effects.
Either way, that's
I know
the science.
They exist.
Yeah, that's the science. That's really, really
and
cool.
That's way different than John Mayer that gets up there and he still has a giant pedal board in front of him,
Yeah, right.
And they're doing it. They have in-ears, but they're probably not playing to a click.
It's also just complicated music. I mean, could you imagine if, like, when Dream Theater lost Mark Portnoy, Oh. Could you imagine if that would have happened in the middle of a tour? If he would have been like, bye. And like, they did like a 6-month thing with auditioning guys and everything. And the guy who got it is a teacher at Berklee, one of the best drummers in the world, who got the gig. But, he couldn't just show up on Friday if they gave him the call Wednesday.
Yeah. Here's the set list.
Yeah. Here's our 30-year catalog of music.
Excuse me. Right. Guys, killer. Great episode. We love you guys. We thank you for listening. This has been another episode of All About the Gig from Laserlight Studios. Peace. This has been Laserlight Presents All About the Gig.